The crowd saw it happening. The blind musician had no idea. Tommy had been playing on that Las Vegas street corner for 3 years. Same spot, same songs. Most days he made enough for dinner. This day started like any other until someone sat down next to him without asking. Just started singing along in perfect harmony. Tommy smiled. It was nice to have company. The people walking past started stopping. One person, then 5, then 50, then 200. They formed a circle around the two musicians, completely silent except for the music. Tommy could hear the crowd, but he couldn't see them. Couldn't see their faces. Couldn't see them crying. He didn't know why they were so quiet. Didn't know why they weren't leaving. Then his singing partner stood up and everything changed. Tommy Castellano had been blind since birth. He was 34 years old and he'd been playing guitar on the corner of Fremont Street and 4th in downtown Las Vegas for 3 years. Same spot every Thursday and Saturday afternoon from 2 p.m. until the sun went down. He wasn't famous. He wasn't rich, but he could play guitar better than most people who could see. And his voice, rough around the edges but honest, had a quality that made people slow down, even if most of them didn't stop. Thursday, June 13th, 1968. Temperature 104 degrees. Tommy arrived at his spot at 1:45 p.m. 15 minutes early like always. He set up his folding chair, his guitar case open in front of him, a handwritten cardboard sign propped against it that read, "Blind Musician, God Bless." By 3:30 p.m., he'd made $11.45. He could tell by the weight and sound of the coins and bills hitting the case, mostly quarters, a few dollar bills. One person had dropped in a 5. He'd heard the crisp sound of paper, felt the thickness when he reached down to check. $11 would cover dinner at the diner down the street. Maybe breakfast tomorrow if he was careful. Tommy started playing Georgia on My Mind. He loved that song, the way it moved, the spaces between the notes where you could feel something bigger than music. He was halfway through the second verse when he heard footsteps stop next to him. Not in front of him where people usually stop to listen, next to him, close. Then he heard the sound of someone sitting down on the curb right there, maybe 3 feet away. Tommy kept playing. People did strange things in Vegas. He'd learned not to be surprised. Then the person started humming along, quietly at first, then louder, finding the melody, matching it perfectly. Tommy smiled. It was nice. He'd been playing alone on this corner for 3 years. Having someone join in, even just humming, felt like a gift. The humming turned into words. Georgia, Georgia, the whole day through. The voice was good. Really good. Not professionally trained good. Something better than that. Natural, like the person had been born singing. Tommy adjusted his playing, making space for the voice. His fingers found a different pattern on the strings, supporting rather than leading. The stranger kept singing, and Tommy joined him on the chorus. Georgia, Georgia, no peace I find. 2 voices now, blending in a way that Tommy hadn't experienced since his days singing in the church choir back in Kentucky, before he'd come west looking for something he couldn't quite name. What Tommy didn't know, couldn't see, was what was happening on the street around them. A woman walking past stopped, then her husband stopped, then the elderly couple behind them. Within 2 minutes, there were 15 people standing in a semicircle watching 2 men on a street corner make music together. Within 5 minutes, there were 40. Within 10 minutes, the crowd had grown to nearly 200 people. They stood in silence, barely breathing, watching something they knew was special, even if they couldn't quite explain why. The blind musician playing guitar with his eyes closed, head tilted back toward the sun, and the stranger sitting on the curb next to him, legs crossed, singing in a voice that made people forget they were standing in 104 degrees heat on a downtown Las Vegas sidewalk. Several people pulled out cameras. This was 1968. Cameras had film. You had to be careful about when you used them. But people sensed this was worth capturing. A police officer walking his beat stopped, smiled, and radioed his partner to come see. 2 cocktail waitresses from the Golden Nugget, still in their uniforms on their break, stood with tears running down their faces. A businessman loosened his tie and sat down on a nearby bench, forgetting about the meeting he was late for. Tommy could hear all of this. The shuffling feet, the breathing of the crowd, the whispers, but he couldn't understand it. Usually, if people stopped, they stopped for 30 seconds, maybe a minute, then they moved on. That was how street performing worked. But these people weren't moving, they were staying, and more kept arriving. Tommy finished Georgia on My Mind, and transitioned smoothly into The Nearness of You. The stranger stayed with him, knowing every word, finding harmonies that Tommy hadn't known existed in the song. They played for 20 minutes, 5 songs. Tommy's guitar case was filling with money. He could hear it. The constant sound of bills and coins being dropped in, far more than usual, but he couldn't understand why. Must be a good crowd today. Must be playing well. He had no idea that people were crying, that they were holding their cameras up, that 200 people had completely stopped their lives to stand on a street corner and witness something beautiful. After the 5th song, Tommy felt the stranger stand up. He heard the brush of clothes, the creak of joints. "Thanks for letting me play with you," the stranger said. His voice was warm, genuine. "I haven't done that in a long time. Just played because I wanted to, not because someone was paying me." Tommy smiled. "Anytime, friend. You've got a gift. You should use it." The stranger laughed. A real laugh. "I try. Some days are better than others." There was a pause. Tommy waited, his fingers still resting on his guitar strings. "I'm Dean, by the way," the stranger said. "Tommy," Tommy replied, extending his hand in the general direction of the voice. He felt a hand grasp his, firm grip. "Warm." "Dean Martin," the stranger said quietly. Tommy's hand froze in the handshake. His entire body went still. "What?" His voice came out barely above a whisper. "Dean Martin," the voice repeated. "Dean Martin, pal. I was walking by, heard you playing, and I just wanted to sit with someone who loves music the way you do." Tommy's other hand came up, grasped the stranger's arm, gripped it. "Dean Martin. The Dean Martin." "Yeah, pal." Tommy sat there, his hand still gripping the stranger's arm, his mind trying to process what he just heard. For 20 minutes, he'd been playing guitar and singing with Dean Martin. Dean Martin had been sitting on a curb next to him. Dean Martin had been singing harmony to his lead. "Why didn't you tell me?" Tommy's voice cracked. Would it have mattered? Tommy thought about that. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. "Exactly," Dean said softly. "I didn't want you to change. Didn't want you to get nervous or start performing instead of just playing. What we just did, that was real. That was music for music's sake. That's rare, Tommy. Really rare." Tommy could feel tears building behind his sightless eyes. I don't, Tommy," Dean interrupted gently. "Can I tell you something?" "Yeah. I make records. I perform in casinos. I make movies. I do all that because I'm lucky and because people like what I do, but most days I'm not making music. I'm making product. I'm giving people what they paid for." Dean paused. Tommy could hear him take a breath. But just now, those 20 minutes, that was music. Pure music. 2 guys who love songs, playing songs because they love them. "I haven't done that in, I don't know how long." "You could do it any time," Tommy said. "You're Dean Martin." "No," Dean said quietly. "Dean Martin can't do that. Dean Martin has contracts and managers and expectations, but Dean, just Dean, can sit on a curb next to a blind guitar player and sing Georgia on My Mind, because it's a beautiful song." Tommy understood then. Dean Martin was trapped by his success in a way Tommy, with his $11.45, would never be trapped. "Thank you," Tommy said, "for sitting with me. Thank you for letting me be just another guy who loves music." Dean stood up. Tommy could hear the crowd still standing there, silent, waiting. "They're still here, aren't they?" Tommy asked. "The crowd? I can hear them." "Yeah, there's about 200 people standing around us." "Why?" "Because they just watched something beautiful and they know it." Tommy heard Dean take a step away, then stop. "Tommy, I'm going to have someone bring you something tomorrow. Don't argue about it. Just accept it. Okay." "What is it?" "A thank you for reminding me why I started singing in the first place." Then Dean was gone. Tommy heard footsteps moving away. Heard the crowd part. Heard people calling out, "Dean! Mr. Martin!" Tommy sat there on his corner, his guitar in his lap, his mind still trying to process what had just happened. Then he heard someone approach. A woman's voice, crying. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Then a man's voice. Here, the sound of paper in his case. A lot of paper. Then another voice and another. Person after person approaching Tommy, dropping money into his guitar case, saying thank you, telling him he was gifted, that what they just witnessed had changed their day, their week, maybe their lives. Tommy sat there overwhelmed as 200 people filed past him one by one, leaving money and gratitude. When the last person left and the street went quiet again, Tommy carefully reached into his guitar case. His fingers touched paper. A lot of paper. Bills, not coins. He could tell by the texture. 20s, 50s, maybe hundreds. He started counting carefully, organizing bills by their size and texture, a skill he'd learned years ago. It took him 20 minutes. When he was done, he sat back against the wall, his mouth open in shock. $2,734 from 20 minutes of playing music with a stranger on a street corner. The next day, a man in a suit arrived at Tommy's apartment. Tommy had given his address to someone in the crowd who'd asked for it. The man introduced himself as Dean Martin's manager. "Mr. Martin asked me to give you this," the man said. Tommy heard the sound of a case being set down. Hard case, big. "What is it?" "A Martin D45 guitar. One of the finest acoustic guitars ever made. Mr. Martin said you'd know what to do with it." Tommy opened the case with shaking hands. His fingers found the strings, touched the wood, felt the weight and balance of an instrument that cost more than he'd made in the last 3 years combined. There was a note attached to the neck. The manager read it aloud. "Tommy, everyone should play an instrument that matches their talent. This guitar deserves someone who plays for love, not money. You keep being real. The world needs that more than it needs another Dean Martin. Your friend Dean." Tommy Castellano kept playing on that corner for another 5 years. But after that day, people knew his name. The story of the blind musician who played with Dean Martin spread through Vegas like wildfire. People came specifically to hear him play, to leave money, to witness something real in a city built on illusion. Tommy made enough money to move into a better apartment, to eat 3 meals a day, to save some for the future. But every Thursday, he still sat on that same corner. Still played from 2 p.m. until sundown. Still kept his cardboard sign propped against his guitar case. Blind musician, God bless. Because he wasn't playing for money anymore. He was playing because Dean Martin had reminded him why music mattered. And because once, for 20 minutes, he'd made pure music with one of the greatest entertainers in the world. And neither of them had been performing. They'd just been 2 guys who loved songs, singing songs they loved. Years later, after Dean Martin died in 1995, Tommy was asked by a reporter if he'd ever heard from Dean again after that day. "No," Tommy said, "but I didn't need to. He gave me everything I needed in 20 minutes. He showed me that music isn't about who you are or who's listening. It's about the moment when 2 people connect through sound. That's what I play for now. Those moments." The reporter asked one more question. "Do you still have the guitar he gave you?" Tommy smiled. "I play it every day. It's the finest instrument I've ever touched. But you know what? The real gift wasn't the guitar." "What was it?" "For 20 minutes, I got to make music with someone who remembered what music was supposed to be. That's worth more than any guitar. That's worth everything." On Tommy Castellano's corner on Fremont Street, there's now a plaque. It reads, "Here in June 1968, blind musician Tommy Castellano and Dean Martin created 20 minutes of magic. They reminded Las Vegas that the best performances happen when no one's performing at all." Tommy died in 2003. He was buried with the Dean Martin guitar. And somewhere, maybe 2 voices are singing Georgia on My Mind in perfect harmony just because they love the song.